You see it everywhere, right? Products, companies, they're all telling us they're sustainable, eco-friendly, or green. But let's be real. How much of that can we actually trust? In this explainer, we're going to look past the label and dig into what really makes one of those claims trustworthy.
And that brings us right to the heart of the problem, something people call the greenwashing dilemma. It's that feeling you get, that little bit of doubt, when you're just flooded with all this feel-good marketing. I mean, think about it. This coffee says it's ethically sourced, that shirt is eco-conscious, this big investment fund is ESG-aligned. All those words sound amazing, but they leave you with this huge question. How can you really be sure? What's actually standing behind that claim?
Now, here's where it gets really interesting. You might think, well, we have global standards now, everyone's filling out the same reports, but that doesn't really solve the problem. As the paper we're looking at today puts it, and I love this line, a template is a filing format, not a truth serum. Just because everyone's using the same form doesn't mean they're all telling the truth.
So if we can't just trust the fancy report, we've got to look deeper. We need to go beyond the glossy pages and the official-looking stamps to figure out what's really going on.
The research suggests we need to be asking two totally different questions. First, there's verification. Basically, can you even check the claim with evidence? Is the data out there? That's super important for sure. But the second question, that's the real game changer. It's about credibility. Is there a system in place where, if someone lies, they will get caught and, this is the key, actually face some real consequences?
And that's the big shift in thinking right there. The argument is that we need to stop getting so hung up on the claim itself, the words on the box, and start looking at the entire system that's supposed to be holding that claim accountable.
And this system, it actually has a name. The researchers call it the accountability channel. You can think of it as the formal plumbing that connects what a company says to what might happen to them if they're not being honest.
Okay, so here's the formal diagram from the paper. Now, I know it looks a little academic. Don't worry, we're not going to get lost in the weeds here. Just notice how it shows a path from a statement all the way down to a consequence. All those boxes in between are the machinery that makes it work. But let's break this down with a much simpler idea.
Let's just call it credibility plumbing. It makes so much sense. For any system to be trustworthy, it needs 4 key parts. First, you've got the vehicle, or V. That's the official pipe, like a legal filing, that the claim flows through. Then you need actors, the A. These are your independent inspectors, like auditors or regulators, checking for leaks. Third, you have pathways, or P. Think of these like valves that let people actually challenge a claim and get the info they need. And finally, and maybe most importantly, sanctions, the S. This is the pressure in the whole system. If someone finds a leak, what happens? Are there real consequences? Like fines or being forced to fix the problem?
Okay, so we've got this cool idea of credibility plumbing, but how do we turn that into something we can actually use? Well, once you understand the parts, you can start to measure how strong the system is and even compare different countries.
And that's done with something called the Accountability Channel Credibility Scorecard, or ACCS. It's basically a report card that grades each piece of that VAPS framework. It lets you see where a system is solid and, more importantly, where the pipes are leaky.
So let's look at a real-world example from the research. This compares the climate disclosure rules in Singapore and Thailand. Now look at that top row, V1, for vehicle. Both get a perfect score of 2. Their pipes are solid. But then look at the next row, P1, evidence access. That's part of the pathways. Both get a weak 1. That tells you it's really hard for an outsider to get the data to actually challenge a company. Same problem down at S2, the activated bite, the real-world consequences. Both score a 1. These are some major weak spots in the plumbing.
And that is the huge takeaway here. You can have 2 different countries adopt the exact same international reporting template, but the trustworthiness of the claims coming out of those systems can be completely different. Why? Because the plumbing behind the walls is not the same.
So you might be thinking, okay, that's interesting, but why does it really matter? Well, this is not just some academic idea. Understanding a country's credibility plumbing has massive, practical implications.
For businesses and investors, it helps them do way better due diligence instead of just checking a box. For regulators, it's a roadmap to building systems that have real teeth. And for global supply chains, this is huge. It could be a way to build trust without just burying small producers and farmers under mountains of paperwork and audits.
And listen, this isn't some far-off theory. It is happening right now. There are new, high-stakes rules.
like the European Union's deforestation regulation, that basically make a country's entire accountability system a factor in whether or not they can trade. If your country's plumbing is weak, it's going to be a lot harder for your companies to sell their stuff in major markets. Credibility is now infrastructure.
So the next time you pick up a product with a green label or you read a big sustainability report, you now have a much better question to ask. Don't just ask, is this claim true? Ask, what's the system holding it up? How strong is the plumbing? Because that's the question that really matters.